Welcome. Welcome.
Waka waka.
Hey, how you doing, everybody? This is our weekly podcast with normally would be Greg.
I am not Greg.
And I'm merely Andy, but today we have a fill-in, and that's Brax.
Can always come in a pinch.
Yeah, Greg was a little bit under the weather,
Here.
so he is hanging out at home, just relaxing, maybe even watching. And Brax is here to hang out instead, so we're going to get right into it.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've been trying to develop is, I don't know if you'd call it a shtick or just
Shtick.
kind of something I do with maybe with guests or with Greg. I'll try it out with Greg next week.
Yeah.
But I have this list of 10 things that I'm going to ask you, and they each one of them corresponds to the number that we're on.
Okay.
So if it's 10, probably going to have the number 10 or 10 things related to that, so
Okay.
on. And so right off the bat, we talked a few weeks ago about survival and survival shows. I don't know if you heard that or watched that, but Greg had this funny joke about this guy stranded on an island and had all these buildings, and even including his former church that he attended by himself. Shout out to Frank, who gave him that joke. So it kind of
Saturday Frank.
Right, inspired this conversation of survival and survival shows like Survivor or
Survivor Man.
with Les Stroud. Yep, Bear
favorite.
Grylls.
Yeah. That guy. He's bananas.
He is. and then the show that I really like and Andy Rubel really likes is called Alone. It's on the History Channel.
It's just a sad title, though, by the way.
Alone?
Can we just acknowledge that? Same, buddy.
And for those of you who don't know Alone, it's 10 contestants that they put out in the wilderness, usually in the Canadian Northwest. And they have to survive for however long they can survive, and the last person standing gets $500,000.
Do these people die?
They don't die. They
Okay.
actually,
It's not like
a
Hunger
lot of them have been
Games.
pulled out because
Okay.
of health reasons. They have health professionals that go in and do regular checkups.
Okay.
They have emergency things like that. But they have this little sat phone that when they want to tap out, they call that, and then they're like, "Hey, this is Larry. I'm tapping out." Whatever.
The cable guy joined this show?
Yep, Larry.
Let's go.
So the first question is, we're going to go from 10 down to 1. The
Yep.
first question is, on this show Alone,
Mm-hmm.
they have some stuff that everybody gets to bring.
Which
like your
is
basic clothes and all that kind of
T-shirt,
stuff.
wool
Yeah.
shirt,
Socks, if you have glasses, that kind of stuff.
wool
But
socks, 6
then there's this
pairs.
long,
That's
extensive
amazing.
list of survival items, and they can only pick 10 of these things. And I have this list here for Brax. You can see that list. It's a long list, and it's very descriptive and specific. And I'm going to have Brax pick out what 10 survival items would you take with you from this list. Now, you've been up to like the Boundary Waters.
Yeah, 2 times.
2 times. Have you ever done any other camping?
Yes.
Anything extreme?
So let me tell you. So I mean, the Boundary Waters was kind of the most like out there, out of the world and stuff. But we went camping at Net Lake. I was a part of that some time ago, and the first time that we did it, this was the most extreme. All right, our campsite was infested with poison ivy.
Oof.
And Jeff Ekstrand just brilliantly, when talking to Gary Morrison, was like, "Yeah, this isn't poison ivy. See," and he's touching it. And the poor guy got all of the oil from the poison ivy.
I remember.
And he like wiped his face.
Yes, I remember.
Oh my gosh, it was terrible. So there was that. There was a beehive, also very close.
Okay.
And this was like on the property, or like just outside of the property of the Vince Shuddy Black Bear Reservation. It was the worst idea for where to camp, but that was, I guess you could call that the most extreme.
Okay.
So, but Boundary Waters for sure is one of my favorite things to do. So I feel this deep in my soul.
Well, the number 1, 10 survival items from
Yes.
that list.
Yes.
And you're going to take that pen and mark which 10 you would like. While he does that, because that's going to actually take a little bit of time, I want to just share with you some NorthRidge news that's coming up, some things that are happening, things that you might want to know about that we would normally do in the middle of the show, but I thought we would save some time here. So the first big thing is tonight, actually. Tonight, there is our Out of the Dust concert. And the weather is kind of, cruddy. So it gives you a good excuse to come on and listen to some music and eat some root beer floats afterwards and hang out and fellowship.
Do you eat those, by the way?
Yes.
Do you drink them or eat them? You consume them?
Okay, so some people, they spoon out the ice cream with the root beer. But some people mash it up and make like a malt.
Okay.
So you could eat or drink. Out of the Dust, 7 o'clock. There is no cost, but we would love for you to give them an offering. Everything, it's a free will offering. Everything that it's given tonight goes to them. They spend the summers and travel around to different cities and different churches, different venues and all that kind of stuff. And they're such a sweet, Jesus-loving, amazing story, talented couple, and they have 2 kids. And so come on 7 o'clock. Bring a friend or 2 or 30. I would love to put as many people in the worship center as possible. That's at 7 o'clock tonight. Also, one really cool announcement that we have is Wednesday night, Kids Quest is going to be starting back up this fall. And that's going to be at 6:30 on Wednesday nights. I'm guessing coincides with fall kickoff, which also we're going to be having our block party. So more information on the block party. But our fall programming will begin on that week. And Wednesday nights, Kids Quest is coming back. And so we want you to bring your kids, 2nd through 5th graders. And then also if you're an adult and want to serve and volunteer for that night, make sure you get in the deal for that. Also, in terms of serving and helping, we still need a lot of help on the weekends for our kids. How are you doing with the youth? Do you need help on Sunday?
We're gonna need help on Sunday mornings as well for the 9 o'clock and the 10:30 service for our middle schoolers. Okay. So, and that can be served once a month, every couple months, every 2 weeks, every week, whatever you want to do.
Whenever you're available.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so join us in loving and serving and leading our young people. Another cool thing that we have is August 9th through 14th is a class called Kairos. And if you watched last week's, Matt Hutchcraft shared a little bit about what Kairos is. There'll probably be some more videos and stuff promoting that. You can go to our website, check under the news and events page, and you'll see more information about this Kairos class, how to sign up, and what it is and all that kind of stuff. So that's Kairos, August 9th through the 14th. I think that's about all I want to share with the news and events and stuff happening. It's, July is quickly wrapping up.
Almost
It's kind of sad. We're going to be heading to August. So enjoy these last few weeks of summer. So number 10 survival items from your list. Why don't you let us know what you would take with you, Brax, to be alone to try to win $500,000.
$500,000. So this might not be the best, but this is what I would do with 10. So I would get the 12 by 12 ground cloth or tarp. I would prefer a tarp.
Yeah.
Because I'm not actually going to use it on the ground.
Yep.
Just wait. Yeah. I know, you're jumping the gun. You're like, why wouldn't you have the tarp on the ground? Here's why. Let me tell you.
You would want it over your head.
I would, yes. Beat me to it. So
somebody also made a boat out of their tarp.
What?
Right.
That's amazing. So I would do the ground tarp, 12 by 12, the multi-seasonal sleeping bag, a hammock. So I would get in the hammock, and it's hammock, by the way, not hammock. Get in the hammock, in the sleeping bag, and put the tarp over me.
Okay.
So that I don't have, if it's raining, then I'm fine.
And you're off the ground.
And I'm off the ground. Okay. I would have a large pot for cooking.
Okay.
Because you can use the large pot for a skillet if you need. You can use it for boiling water if you need.
Yep.
So that seems to be the most out of one. I would get a water bottle. That's kind of important to me. I would do that.
Couldn't you just drink out of your pot?
I probably could.
Okay.
So if there was any one that I would switch, it would be the water bottle.
Okay.
But when you're moving around during the day, like having it on you would be nice. By the way, is there a backpack included?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And all the stuff has to fit in your backpack.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yep.
A recurve bow with
Okay.
9 arrows because I need to eat something and I probably have to kill it.
Have you ever shot a bow before?
So that's a big problem. You know what? In a way, yes. So
In a way.
I think
It's another
it's,
Net Lake story?
No,
Okay.
no. Is it Covenant? No, I think it's trout. They put in a
Little archery?
No, kind of. It's like archery dodgeball. They put foam balls at the end of the arrows, and you
That's
have
hilarious.
a paintball mask on, and you shoot arrows at the other team.
That's
and
funny.
they shoot them back at you. It was pretty fun.
That sounds like a trout thing.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. So I would have one of those. And there's 9 arrows. So, I mean,
Yeah.
and what's nice about arrows is you can go and pick them up, like in Legend of Zelda. Which shows you how much I know. A small gauge gill net. So I assume that's just for putting the net down and in the water. And
Yep, trying to catch fish.
yeah, so I would probably do that because I'm not a great fisherman. So I'd probably do that because then I could get like crawfish and stuff like that. It's very low energy consumption to just put that in and
Yep.
get it out. So
And it does for you, so you don't have to expend the
Yeah.
energy actively fishing. It's
Yeah.
passive fishing.
yep. So I would do that.
It's good.
Hunting knife, hatchet, and a saw. So if I were to get rid of the water bottle, I would choose like beef jerky or something to have food. So the things I don't have, a little concerning. I don't have any food, and I have no hygiene products. So
Well, a lot of people don't bring any food. They just expect to forage
yeah,
for vegetation or catch food,
yeah,
trap food, hunt
Yep.
for food.
that sounds.
I rarely see anybody gnawing on some beef jerky.
Yeah.
Or anything like
But
that.
the thing is, I
A box of nerds would be
haven't
sweet.
killed anything and eaten it yet in my life, so maybe it'd be a good idea to
You don't
have.
even know how to field dress an animal, do you?
I played Red Dead Redemption plenty of times,
Okay.
and I have watched Arthur Morgan and John Marston field dress
All
animals.
right, hold down the X button.
Yeah, hold down the X button. That's all you have to do for this. So what's my next question?
All right, number 9. And this is, do you know what German 9 means in German?
No!
All right. So,
999!
so instead of a number, this is no.
Oh, okay.
Who do you
Been
find
expecting you, Mr. Bond.
Who do you find it hardest to say no to in your life? Don't put God in that, because
Yeah.
that would be my number one, your number one.
Yeah.
But you have family members, you have kids, you have your wife, you have other people in your life. Who is the hardest person to say no to? 9 to in your life.
That's really tough. I would have to say either my wife or my dad, probably.
Okay,
Probably. Yeah. That'd be my guess.
you have to pick one.
My wife. Easy answer.
Okay, good. Number
the safe
8. What is the worst food you ever ate?
The worst food that I've ever eaten.
8. Bad
The
grammar.
worst the worst food
What's
I
the
ever
worst
ate.
food you ever ate?
The worst food I ever ate. What's yours while I think of mine? Do you have one?
Well, we were talking about this yesterday.
Okay.
Kimchi.
Oh, yeah.
It's a Korean dish.
Yeah.
I'm obviously not Korean. I'm German, with my last name being Schultz. But I had a friend in high school who was Korean, and his parents were from Korea. His grandparents were Korean. Just,
Yeah.
And I would go over to his house, and his mom would cook kimchi for me,
Mhm.
and it was so hard because you have to eat it,
Yeah.
just to be polite,
Yeah.
culturally,
Yep.
all that kind of stuff. But it was so hard, and it's spicy, and it's fermented cabbage. So
Ugh.
Brian, my friend, he would tell his mom to make it not as spicy for me. I just
Okay.
would prefer that she didn't make it at all when I would
Yeah.
go over there. Which
Yeah.
I only did that like 3 times,
Yeah.
but that's mine.
Okay.
I'm sure there's something worse, but we
Yeah.
were just talking about that yesterday.
I can't really think of one. I'll just tell you one that I probably have eaten but the smell is just awful to me. Sauerkraut. I don't know why, because I'm like 46% German, and so you would think that I would be all over that.
Yeah.
But sauerkraut, it
it's
smells to me like sometimes when a bathroom just stinks.
right.
That's
It's like the
what it smells
European
like.
version of kimchi, almost.
I think so. Yeah.
Yes.
It's like let's just ferment some coleslaw
Yeah.
and then throw some hot dogs in it.
All right, number 7.
7.
Why is the number 7 so lucky?
Okay, I don't have a great answer to this. It's my favorite number, though.
Yeah.
7 is.
Well, and there's a lot of hubbub about the number 7.
Yeah.
You know, biblical.
Yep. There's 7
I have a
colors
list.
in the rainbow,
Okay.
which is pretty neat. 7 days of creation. And before you get all biblical on me, well, God was creating for 6 days. 7th day, that's the end of it. That's the end of creation week. If we say 6 days is it, we got some problems. And maybe we'll go into that later when it comes to some other topics.
But it is associated with luck and magical properties.
Magical powers.
Um,
I have also played a character in some tabletop role-playing games called 7.
7.
7 is the character that I am currently playing. So for those of you who are nerdy tabletop RPG players, 7 is my current character. And I love that character. I don't know why it's so special. Besides, honestly, I think the 7 days of creation and that God seems to have said that is the number of completion in the Bible. So
here's a cool fact about the 7. In 1956, George Miller of Harvard University wrote what is today considered one of the most classic papers in psychology, in which he demonstrated that most people can retain roughly 7 items of information in their short-term memory.
what?
That is why phone numbers in the United States, many other countries, tend to have 7 digits,
What?
area code notwithstanding. As is most digits, most people are likely to recall, although cell phones have done away with the need to recall anyone's number,
Yeah.
even your own. So that's another interesting
Do you know
fact.
your own phone number, by the way?
Yes,
Okay.
I do. I'm not going to say it.
Okay. That's fair.
Prime number. It's a prime number.
Yes.
Those
yes.
that can only be divided by themselves and the number 1.
Yep.
It's the most popular number. The mathematician Alex Bellos, could be Bellos, asked 44,000 people to name their favorite number. Over 4,000 of them named the number 7.
Over 4,000 out of 44,000?
Yeah, out of 44,000 people.
So was that the highest?
What their number?
You think?
I'm just reading.
Because, I mean, there's a lot of numbers.
There
That's
is.
crazy. There's like an infinite amount of numbers. And
He just
people are
asked
like,
44,000 people to name their favorite number, and over 4,000 of them named the number 7, far more than any other number. Indeed, ask people to name a number from 1 to 10, and many will name the number 7, as many magicians know.
wow.
So that's the
That
number
is
7. Number
special.
6, and this can be in any order. Doesn't need to
Okay.
be from favorite to least. What are the 6 favorite places that you've ever been? And this could be a country. This could
Yep.
be a restaurant. This could be
Okay.
my little spot on the side of Lake Minnetonka, wherever, any location.
'Kay.
6 favorite places that you.
My childhood home in Hanover, St. Michael area. It was on Lake Wilhelm. This is just a tiny private lake.
Okay.
So I love that place. Alaska, Metlakatla, Alaska. Love that place. There's a team up right now from the Isaiah Connection that's enjoying hanging out up there. I absolutely love it's Yellow Mountain or Yellow Hill, and it's this just like the highest point on Metlakatla. It's because it's an island in Alaska, and it's like the highest point. You go up there and you get to just 360 view of the ocean and the mountains behind, because like Metlakatla is an island off of the mountain range kind of thing, and it's just, oh my gosh,
You
just
see wildlife from
beautiful.
that spot?
Yeah. Well,
Caribou or
I didn't see any caribou. There was a ton of eagles.
Okay.
At one point, the day that we left, and crazy story with that, we we couldn't take the ferry because the ferry workers were on strike.
I remember hearing about this.
So it was really questionable about whether or not we'd be able to come home. But there were fishermen that would take us. So we're waiting at the docks, and there's this tree, and we see like 7 eagles, maybe, you know? But then as we're staring at this tree, we keep counting, and it ended up being like well over 20 eagles, bald eagles in this tree. So lots of wildlife up there. It's gorgeous. Colors just seem more alive and themselves, and everything seems just more beautiful up there.
That's 2.
Yep, Boundary Waters,
Boundary Waters.
of course.
Yep.
I absolutely love it up there.
3.
Cheesecake Factory. It's
4.
So
Something
good.
had special happen at the Cheesecake Factory?
At the moment,
Or you just like the
no,
food
I
there?
just love the food,
Okay.
and Jess and I go there. That's kind of our new, like, it used to be Olive Garden was like our place. My in-laws' house would probably be one of my favorite places. I think just there's a lot of memories there. Jess and I talked in the parking lot a lot, or not parking lot. It feels like a parking lot
Driveway.
sometimes if you go there, but there's a lot of cars. But in the driveway, and a lot of our relationship building was at that house. I also proposed in the driveway of their house. The Otsego Park in Otsego, where the Mississippi is.
Oh, where we do our
Where we do the
celebration
baptism.
picnic
Yep.
and baptism.
Yeah, that is
Okay.
one of my favorite places.
I think that's 6.
I don't know. I would say then Northridge would be the if there's another one that has to be
Bonus.
had, that would be the one. So
Cool. Number 5. You know who Jordan Peterson is,
I
right?
do. Yes.
For those of you who don't know, he's a clinical psychologist. He is, I don't know if he's practicing right now anymore, but he's a philosopher, just kind of a current cultural commentator. He has a book, though, especially the one that kind of really made him more well known, called 12 Rules for Life.
Yep.
I have a list here, and you've read or reading this book.
I listened to it on audiobook over vacation.
So I have the list of 12 rules for life, and he actually has a second book to add to this list.
Yeah.
But I
12
need you,
more rules
I
for
need
life.
you to pair this list from 12 to 5.
12 to 5?
Give me the best 5.
Oh, the best 5 of them.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Because there are some on there that really don't need to be on there.
Stand up straight with your shoulders back.
That's one of them?
Yep.
Okay.
Treat yourself like you are responsible, like someone you are responsible for helping. Let me say that again.
Yeah.
Treat yourself like you are someone you are responsible for helping.
Yeah.
That, like those 2 right there, were probably the most powerful for me because we don't naturally like ourselves all that much. We like to think that we do because we think we're a pretty narcissistic society. But the thing is, we like versions of ourselves, but we tend not to like ourselves.
Yeah.
And he points to like a case study where the biggest reason why like people, after they've been given medication, why they like go back into sickness is because they don't take their medication. But if they go to the vet with their dog and the dog is prescribed medication, they will give their dog medication.
Yep.
Religiously. And it's like, so you care, honestly, we care more about our dogs sometimes than we care about ourselves. So treat yourself like you are someone you are responsible for helping is so important.
Okay, so that's 2.
That's 2. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to someone who someone else is today. Again, just this idea of taking responsibility for your own life. I think if that was like the running theme of the book, that's really it. It's so good. Don't let your children do anything that makes you dislike them.
I love that one.
It's so good.
Yeah.
That has helped me so much because like when I'm telling Clint not to do something, and he's not even 2, but like I'm telling him not to do something and I'm going, and I can explain to him why I don't want him to do something because I don't want to dislike him. It's such like that's so freeing to be able to tell your child, look, I don't want to resent you, and to be honest about that. So that's really good. I think pursue what. Where am I at?
You got one more.
I got one more. Tell the truth, or at least don't lie.
I like that one.
That one's so good. Yeah.
So what he left off of this list, he left off, set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world.
Which is also so good.
Make friends with people who want the best for you, which is a really good one, too. Assume that the person you are listening to might know something you don't.
Oh, so good.
Which is also a good one. Be precise in your speech.
So good.
And here's two that pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient.
I was gonna say that, but the tell the truth or at least don't lie. It's,
and then there's two goofy ones on this list. Don't bother children when they're skateboarding.
Which is a fantastic chapter, by the way.
And then pet a cat when you encounter one on the street.
Which is the most confusing chapter. He starts by talking about dogs and cats, and he's like, I don't want to. I don't want to make anybody mad who's a dog lover, and at the same time, I don't want to alienate anyone who's a cat lover. Yeah. And he starts, and then he talks about like suffering for like a half hour, and then and then he concludes the chapter, and that in his very great Canadian accent is why you should pet a cat when you see one on the street.
It's really good.
Such a good book.
It's very insightful.
And to keep in mind, he's not a Christian, but.
He would say, this is how he would say,
right.
I live my life as if God does exist.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily saying
that he is a Christian.
Yeah.
And I would say even if he ends up being a Christian, because he's a very religious person.
Right.
And he
very
loves
knowledgeable
Jesus.
about the Bible.
Yeah. He's done lectures on Genesis.
Well, he was going through, on his podcast, he was going through the whole Bible.
Yeah. So. Just nuts.
Yeah.
But he has such good insight into just caring for yourself and living life in a way that acts as if God is real, which I think is really helpful for the Christian. Yep. So I would highly recommend.
He also has these really good debates with Sam Harris, who is an atheist. There's 4 really long ones on YouTube where they just have this really in-depth discussion. They're fascinating to me. I've watched all 4 of them at least twice.
Nice.
And so I'm really intrigued about that stuff. All right, number 4. Cars or trucks have 4 wheels. What is your dream car or truck? No money, not an issue.
Man,
your dream car or / truck.
Audi R8.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Color?
Silver with the black stripe, because it's Tony Stark's car.
Yeah. Have you ever seen one in person?
Yeah.
Have you ever sat in one?
I think so.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I did, because we used to go to car shows.
They're really hard to get into because they're so low to the
They're
ground.
very low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 3, besides God or Jesus, 3 people in the Bible that you'd want to meet in heaven right away. Talk to.
Man. In the Bible.
From the Bible.
Okay.
Yep. Not like
Anyone.
Johnny Cash.
Yeah. Johnny Cash would be up there. Yeah. Ain't no grave. Keep his body down. He's coming back. Enoch sounds interesting to me. He's the guy that walks with God for 365 years and then is gone.
Yep.
That's pretty special.
Didn't die. So I like that. I would like to, 365 years, like that's some insight, like we've never hit anyone in our lifetime that has had that kind of insight. So that would be really cool. Interesting choice.
Yeah. I think David, and part of that is because I'm listening to Poor Bishop Hooper. Poor Bishop Hooper.
Is that a characteristic or is that his name?
This is, it's a couple band. And they have like 81 psalms that they put these psalms to music. Okay. And it's much more modern, kind of hipster, kind of indie vibe. And I've just been, and part of it is because we're in this series of Get Real. And I've been so struck by how they've modernized the language of the Psalms, and they really get at the poetry and the feeling, that it's made me look at the Psalms in a new way, of that this is actually someone who lived, who is actually going through these feelings and experiences and betrayal and longing for justice, and it's just made it so much more real. So I think David was one of the healthiest communicators with God in the Bible. Because, I mean, like, he's not afraid to tell God that he's like, hey, I feel like crap right now. This person betrayed me. I want you to send them to the depths of the grave, And there's so much to learn from that. And so I wouldn't have said David like before this series, because it's kind of a cliche and I don't like cliches. But now that I've been listening to that, I think I would really like to.
Poor Bishop Hooper.
And they are trying to
Interesting name.
release a psalm every week until they are done. Zach Hellman told me about it, and I've been listening to it, and it's just fantastic. By the way, Psalm 42, their rendition of that, it's so good.
Interesting.
It's fantastic.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, and Paul. Yeah, because he's
Enoch, David, and Paul.
those would be my three for now. Yeah.
We're down to number 2. What are your top 2 impressions that you can do?
Oh, man, that's a very good question. The most popular, most requested, I think, is Christopher Walken.
Christopher Walken.
Yeah. I've been working on my Owen Wilson lately because he's in Loki as Mobius.
Yep.
And I got pretty good last week. My voice has been strained lately, and the last couple of days that I've tried to do it has not sounded all that great. Jack Sparrow is another one.
Okay, well, we're
Just two.
Just
So
two.
Christopher Walken, and I would, probably Jack Sparrow right now. So
All right. Well, next time you see Brax, you'll have to ask him to do one of those.
Yep.
Did you ever see Christopher Walken's? Is it Saturday Night Live?
Yep.
With him trying out for Star Wars.
No, what?
Oh, really?
What?
Really?
This is a thing?
Really?
Oh my gosh!
I think he was. Yeah. Check it
that
out.
sounds amazing.
Yep.
Wow.
Number 1. Pick one superpower you'd want to have. That's kind of a
Easy. Yep.
easy.
Time manipulation.
Ugh, Doctor Strange.
Yep. I mean, if you have that superpower,
It doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter what happens. You can just stop. Like, you could be fighting Thanos, stop time, walk up, decapitate him, and just start time again. And that's too bad, Thanos.
Yeah.
Like, you just die. Time freezes, and
How
you
long do you
just
think
die.
it would take him to saw off his head?
I don't know. Because I got a saw with me in my survival, but it can't be more than 3 feet. He looks like he's got a big head,
Right.
so it's going to take some time. But if I had time manipulation powers,
manipulation.
I could probably find something to easily chop off Thanos' head. So,
Well, there you go.
Kind of
There's a
dark.
10 listed 10.
10.
What I want to talk about for the remainder of our time here is stuff related to leadership. I finished. This doesn't mean anything, by the way, and I'm not trying to humble brag or nothing, because there was less than 7 things that I've retained from college. But I got my my bachelor degree in organizational leadership, so I read a lot of books, spent a lot of time looking at leadership ideas and practices, strategies, all of those things. And so I just wanted to have a discussion about leadership, and I have a few questions here. What kind of traits or characteristics, skills, personalities do you feel are paramount? Now, I mean, I don't mean just like this is handy, but like crucial for an effective leader.
So what I'm thinking right now, because I'm reading a book. We talked about this earlier.
How many books are you currently reading right now?
The Bible, Return of the King, and right now I'm reading When Narcissism Comes to Church.
When narcissism comes to church.
Yes,
Okay.
and that's prompted from a Christianity Today podcast called The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill, and that was Mark Driscoll's church, ended in 2014. And they had Chuck DeGroat on the podcast, interviewed him quick, and they mentioned the book, and I was very interested. So I'm reading that right now, and it's pretty good for just telling you kind of what not to be. Like a narcissist, don't do that if you're going to be a leader. So then, and narcissism is just like, I think in our culture, we want narcissists to be leaders because they're charismatic. They're we mistake their certainty for conviction when it could just be stubbornness. And they tend to have enough ideas to really get things going. And part of it is just the narcissist's self-worth is wrapped up in their work and their persona and what they can do in a church or in an organization. So they're very motivated people to make sure that things get done. So a lot of times we, in our culture, whether it's in the church or outside of the church, we want narcissists to be our leaders, which is just a horrible setup. So I'd say like the things that are paramount that I'm looking at right now is love for the people that are being led, humility. So kind of with Peterson's, like listen to someone like they might have something to say. So that kind of openness to be wrong and to learn and to be curious. So love, humility, integrity being a very important one, and not because we kind of have this idea of like integrity of like be true to your word, do what you say you're going to do. I think that's kind of like a common understanding of integrity, and I don't mean the word in that sense because you can't always be true to your word. Like you can say I'll be there, but how do you know? Like you could get in a car accident on the way. There's so many things that could prevent you. So
just don't lie.
Yeah, tell the truth. At least don't lie. But I mean integrity in the sense of being like an integrated person where it's like who I am on the outside and who I am on the inside is the same, and owning the flaws of myself, I think is really important, which goes to the humility piece. But so love, humility, listening, integrity, and again with this idea of humility, I think boundaries would be really important because as a leader, I think you have to have boundaries. Otherwise, you'll just be burnt out and die.
We'll get to burnout in a moment here. Do you think it's possible for somebody to possess all of those things that you just talked about and not be an effective leader?
Yeah, probably. I mean, there's so much. It depends on what they're leading.
Sure. And do these, because it sounds like the list that you created would really be, I mean, good in both, but more seen in a church environment.
Mm-hmm.
And so thinking about skills or traits, characteristics, personalities, or whatever that might be outside of the church environment, are there anything that you'd add to that? Or
I mean, I think the whole back to Peterson, put your own life in order before you criticize the world. So like if you can't lead yourself towards a positive vision of the good of in life, if you can't say here's where I want to be in 5 years, what do I need to do in order to be that, if you can't lead yourself, and that's self-discipline, then I don't think you're going to be a very effective leader, because it's like you're not doing it for you. So what business do you have telling other people what they should do and where as an organization you should be in 5 years? Like you don't even know for yourself. That doesn't sound that great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that one would be important. I mean, being a good communicator is helpful, but you can be a bad communicator, like public speaking and stuff like that, and presentations. You don't have to have all of these, like what we typically associate with good leadership skills of like the powerful leader. Like you don't have to have that in order to be a good leader. So, yeah.
Yeah, I worked with senior pastors in the past who were incredible leaders. Their strong suit was not preaching.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
They were phenomenal leaders.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
And I've worked with great speakers that could, lead 10 people.
Yeah.
But they could get up in front and captivate a crowd and communicate effectively and teach really well, all that kind of stuff. Something you've learned so far in ministry that you wouldn't or couldn't have learned in the classroom as a leader in particular.
Oh, as a leader. Okay.
Yeah, in particular.
I think one of the things for me has been don't run too fast. So like I've gone to Bible college. I'm 26. I've thought a lot about God, and I've read the Bible a lot, and I've read a lot of books, and I can tend to talk ideas too quickly, and vision, and vision casting, and all that kind of stuff with leadership, and it's important, I've found, to slow down so that everybody knows what we're talking about. When it comes to like setting a vision and communicating that vision, to try to slow down and make sure everyone's on the same page instead of being like, I know what we're doing, let's go. Like there's so many personality types that are different than me, and people that are different than me that are not just going to be like, yeah, let's do that. Like, no. And then just the people that you're trying to lead as well, of like, be patient. They're at a different spot in life than you are, and don't run them to exhaustion by giving them too much for them to run towards or something. So that'd be an important one for me, is just being patient and don't run too fast in the areas that I'm really good, because I really appreciate people's patience in the areas that I'm not so great. So extending that to others.
Yeah. Well, in the areas that I'm not good at, mine was delegation.
Yeah.
You can learn about the concept of it, but really learning how to do it in a ministry environment, you can't do it without just the experience, and knowing how to do it, how to make adjustments, who to delegate, what needs to be delegated based off your, giftings and skill sets and personalities and all that kind of stuff. How to share that weight of responsibility. You can't teach that.
Yeah.
So delegation has been something over the course of the last 20 years.
Yeah.
You think I'd be better at it?
Things we work on until we die.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned burnout.
Yeah.
What is burnout technically, and what causes it, especially when it comes to church leaders, and how do you avoid it?
So a very good resource on this is a book by A.J. Swoboda called Subversive Sabbath. And this last weekend, when we were talking about Psalm 51, I brought up Sabbath in there, and the youth just talked about Sabbath. And all of that is kind of stemming from this book, and it's so good. So if you want to know more about A.J. Swoboda, S-W-O-B, I think, and then by then your Google search will know anyway. So
Subversive Sabbath.
It's so very good. So the causes of burnout that I can see, and I think I've probably pushed myself pretty close to being burnt out. I mean, my first full year of ministry was 2020. So that was emotionally very burning. But so there's this in the book, Swoboda points out that in ministry, we tend to be like Moses on the mountain. Our concern is we'll come down from the mountain and people will be worshiping a golden calf and things will just fall apart. So we're fearful of that. So we tend not to leave and go up to the mountain. The other fear is that actually the opposite would happen. We would come down from the mountain and everything would be fine.
Oh, like they didn't miss you.
They didn't need you.
Yeah.
And this kind of, I think, goes to the narcissism thing, is that our self-worth is wrapped up in our vocation. So we think, gosh, if they don't need me, who am I? What am I?
Sure.
So I think burnout tends to be caused by, at root, that fear of things will either go horribly without me or they'll go really great. And so, and at root with that, it's distrusting God of like the reality that you are human and He is God. So we tend to blur the line between creator and creature in that way of thinking of like, if I don't do it, it won't get done. That's a lie. If it's important, God will have it get done. And it doesn't, and that's not to say that people aren't important. God uses people to do that. But it doesn't always have to be you. And people that tend to burn out take on too much of that responsibility in a distrust of God, that He is creator and sovereign. We're creature, and He commands rest. He commands Sabbath. So it's that taking on too much, and then it tends to be your times of rest have work bleeding into it, because you're so important, right? Like you have to have access to email and text and all that kind of stuff, and so work tends to bleed in, which then also means your rest tends to bleed into work, so you don't do either very well, which can create more of a sense of anxiety about work and inadequacy and stuff like that, of like, no, I'm not doing this well, so then you feel like you got to work harder, which means you're bowling over your rest times even more. And so I think it kind of stems from that distrust, and then you just keep going like that for a long time, and then you burn out because you're like, physically what's going on is your adrenal glands are actually getting more and more shot. You're running on adrenaline and you're not supposed to. It's like chemical overload. We're not supposed to run at those levels all the time. So Sabbath comes in, and God's command to Sabbath breaks that, I think. And I think if you don't want to burn out, obey the fourth commandment. Like that's been so huge for me.
So you feel like that was what was happening last year in 2020?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever Sabbathed that well until like 2 months ago.
Okay.
So I mean, now it's like Sunday night we have Sabbath dinner. We've tried to borrow from like Jewish tradition, because like as Christians we don't really have a whole lot of tradition around the Sabbath. It's just like you go to church, you take the day off. But we have Sabbath dinner. I turn my phone off. It's not on until Tuesday morning. And I just tell people, like, if there's an emergency, call Jess, because my phone's off. Yeah. And we spend Monday enjoying each other, enjoying God, enjoying His creation. And that's the day. It's like, it's this day where that feeling that you're never doing enough and that God always wants more from you, it's just like, that's just shut down. It's like, no, this is what God wants. He wants to hang out with you for a day. Yeah. That's really it. That's the gospel. In the book, he talks about the first day that humanity was alive was Sabbath. So it wasn't like, okay, you guys need to work. And then once you work 6 days, then you can rest. Yeah. That's a reward system. But God puts grace and rest at the beginning. And it's the same for us as Christians, is that we get rest at the beginning. We enter into the rest that has been since the creation of the world. We enter into the rest of God through Christ. And that's the gospel. Like and from rest, from grace, then you work. But you work always aiming back at rest. Because, I mean, Sabbath is just, it's heaven breaking into our reality for one day a week, because Sabbath is what heaven is. It's God wanting to dine with his people, and for him to enjoy them, for us to enjoy him. It's enjoyment and acceptance. It's like you don't have to be something else or try to be enough on Sabbath. It's just like, it's so good. Yeah. Highly recommend it. If you're not doing it, man, read the book and go from there. And I would say too, like, if you feel like you're at a spot where you can't take a whole day off, take however much time you can. If it's 3 hours, that's all you have because your schedule's nuts and you're working multiple jobs and you're a single mom or whatever. There's so many life circumstances that make it difficult. But if all you have is 3 hours, set up your life and your schedule so that those 3 hours are restful, where you can enjoy God, you can enjoy your family, you can enjoy his creation, and that you don't feel like you have to get anything done. But I would highly recommend the book. It's been very, very powerful for me and just my own health and my own understanding of who I am in Christ. That God's not demanding anything from me. What he really wants is just for us to enjoy each other.
Yeah.
So
that's good. I think all of that, plus something that I struggled with earlier, kind of when I was around your age with burnout, because I was doing youth ministry. Mm-hmm. There was just more practical. There was so many things, so many responsibilities that you have as a youth leader, youth pastor. And there's no way that one person can be good at all of those things. But you feel like you have to do as many as you can. And when you operate too long in areas that you're not very good at, that tends to thin things out quicker than... Because I think when you're doing what you love to do, it doesn't even feel like you're expending energy.
Right, yeah, it's like that.
Right. It's
what you
almost
love.
Refilling.
Yeah.
But when you're doing things that you're not skilled or gifted at, it's draining.
Yeah, and with that, I think you bring up a good point. I think another piece of burnout is pretending.
Yeah.
Because it's so tiring. Oh my goodness. I think, for a long time I thought I had to pretend to be competent. And the reality is I am not competent. And to own that and be like, I have so many flaws and inadequacies. I'm good at a few things, and I hope that God cultivates me and I get better at things that I'm not good at. Yeah. But I'm not the body of Christ. I'm not the whole thing. Like the body of Christ is the fullness of Christ on earth, but not just one person. And it can be so tempting to try to be, as perfect as Jesus is. And so you pretend that you are because you think that that's what people expect of you. And I think for the most part, they don't. I think the church is more gracious than that most of the time. I think that, maybe a few people have that understanding, but I think for the most part, the church is not expecting you to be Jesus. But if you have that expectation for yourself and you think that other people have that expectation for yourself, you can really create tension between who you're projecting yourself to be in front of other people and who you really are. And you don't feel very loved for who you really are, because people are just loving the projection of you. And then you also, this has been my experience, is resenting the projection of yourself, because that projection of yourself gets all of the love.
Sure.
And it's like, but that's not really me. If they only knew how terrible I was, they wouldn't love me. It's like, well, again, they're more gracious than that. So,
Yeah, Andy Stanley, I was at a conference down in Atlanta a number of years back before I was at NorthRidge, where he said, play to your strengths, delegate your weaknesses. And that's been something that, going back to delegation, is something that has saved me a lot of needless expending of energy. And then also creating a vacuum of opportunity for other people to get involved and be a part of things. So that's something kind of related to burnout that has been an increasing conversation, especially for church leaders and pastors, is mental health. Why do you think it's such an issue, especially looking at things during 2020? Things got even worse.
Yeah.
There's been a few that have committed suicide.
Yeah.
There have been a number, I don't know if it's up to the hundreds, that have resigned. And not because of moral issues. It's just they quit. They left. Tired.
Yeah.
Burnt out.
Yeah.
And then there's some that have compromised their values because they were burnt out or struggling mentally, where they, chose to do something that they wouldn't normally do. And then in general, COVID and especially the quarantine, COVID, quarantine, all that kind of stuff from 2020 has spun a lot of people, not even just church leaders, but other people outside the church into mental health issues. Why do you think?
I mean,
it's a long conversation.
Yeah,
I know.
that is. Like, why specifically with COVID and stuff? Yeah, that is the question, isn't it?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. This last year. It's increased this last year.
Yeah.
And it's obvious. The big obvious point, too, is because of COVID stuff.
Yeah. Well, okay, so a few thoughts. I think, for one, we're pretty bad at self-examination anyway, like, I was talking to Zach Hellman today, and I'm like, I'm kind of surprised that, like, pastors aren't required to go through therapy before they start pastoring, because I'm like, how many issues do we have that we have no idea about? And there's, all of us have so many issues that we might be completely unaware of. And I think that's biblical. David says in Psalm 19, declare me innocent of hidden faults. So if there's hidden sins, these blind spots when it comes to sin, it's like there's probably a lot of blind spots too when it comes to just your own emotional well-being, your history, your family history and upbringing and all that kind of stuff that we don't know when it happens to, like, when you're a kid and stuff happens, you have no idea what's going on. You just, in my experience, it's like you just go, well, that's normal because that's what the adults are doing. It's normal. And it's like, it might not be. It might not be healthy. And so I think there's a lot of stuff that we don't unpack anyway. We don't examine ourselves. We don't ask for help from other people to counsel us.
You think that's because we don't know what to do with it, or we don't want to deal with it?
I think it might be a little bit of both, like, if you're trying to be strong, right? And then you have these obvious weaknesses, and those things threaten to destroy the life that you've built for yourself.
Well, it goes back to that projection of yourself that you were talking about.
So I think that's a part of it, of like that. It's scary to deal with that. It's scary to acknowledge that you don't have it all together. It's scary. We talked about this on Sunday. It's scary to acknowledge that your sin is evil. And that you're not just a victim, but that you also perpetrate evil in this world. Partly because of your victimhood, but because of your own sinful nature. It's scary, and to be laid low that way, I think. It's scary to admit that you need help. we're very self-sufficient in our country, and we pride ourselves in pulling ourselves up by the bootstraps and all that kind of stuff. So in general, it's scary to reach out and ask for help. And then you have COVID, and it's like all of what was normal is gone. All of the routines that you had, if you had them, are gone. Uncertainty of the future. And I think, in leadership, gosh, I mean, if you were struggling with inadequacies as a pastor before COVID, thinking, man, when is the congregation finally going to realize that I don't know what I'm doing? Then you have COVID, where the fact that you don't know what you're doing is on display for the entire congregation to see every week because you're broadcasting it on YouTube. It's like, gosh. So if you're struggling with that sense of, when are they finally going to realize that I'm a pretender and I don't know what I'm doing? Which, by the way, everyone on this planet is just a little kid making it up as they go. We all thought that we would figure it out, like, man, once I hit 18, once I hit 20, like, then I'll know everything and what to do. It's like, no, that never happens. Everyone is a child still. We just look older. Yeah. So it's normal to not know what you're doing, but for some reason, we think that we have to know what we're doing. And so I think that's a part of it, is like, it just, our inadequacies were ever before us then. And we were just terrified that people would point it out. So that might have been part of it, of, the burnout and the quitting and people thinking, because everyone had their own opinions and stuff like that during COVID. There's churches that are like, we should do this. We should do online services from now on. No, we should do hybrid. No, we shouldn't even care what the government's telling us to do. Everyone had an opinion. And you couldn't make everybody happy in such a horrible time. And then, you experience this a lot. You put a lot of work in. And for me, like, I think my ministry moved way more relational because it had to be, one-on-one kind of stuff because that's all you could meet for. But, I mean, you're doing all this media and tech stuff, like, on overdrive, And I think that's probably part of it, too, is, like, you had to completely restructure and figure out how to do worship ministry and the entire weekend services and do it well, like you're a professional when you just tried to do this for the first time.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, I've been doing it long enough, and you're right. It's like there's this pressure of coming across like you know what you're doing, being competent. And I think familiarity has a big part to do with that because, for the most part, things are similar in feel and look and all that stuff week to week here at church. And then with COVID, there was, to be honest, not that I wanted to aim low, but there was a sense of which there are thousands and thousands of churches that are in the same boat. Now, there's a distinguishable amount of churches that this was no problem for them because they had this gigantic production budget.
Their website said .tv anyway before this.
And they produce TV quality things week to week anyways. Yeah. And, I think a big trap for church leaders is comparing yourself to other churches. But there was this relief for me, partly, on one side, especially when it comes to the stuff that I'd never done before. The relief was, I think the bar can be low because, this is new for a lot of us.
Yeah. And,
we want to strive to get better every week. But, it's a learning. The learning curve is set, I think, in the right spot for where we were at. And yes, I tried to do it as best as I could with what we have, and I think that's what excellence is. And trying to take in comments and feedback from people to use that to improve every week. And I found it to be a lot of work, but not very stressful.
Mm.
And I think those are at least for me, they're two different things.
Mm-hmm.
Especially just having been I've been in ministry for long enough to know that hard work doesn't need to be stressful. Only if you make it stressful. I think that has to do with expectations and whose expectations are we trying to meet and all that stuff. And the fact that I had people every week to do it with. I wasn't always on an island. I wasn't by myself, whether it was filming you guys for speaking or recording music with the band. Now, a lot of the editing was on my own. Once all the stuff was finished video, I'd be at home for hours up in the middle of the night, having all-nighters editing video and making sure I can get it. But it was always, the process was always with people.
Yeah.
And as introverted as I can be, we all need, whether you're an introvert, you need people. Whether you're an extrovert, you need some time alone. But it was pretty balanced for me during that time.
Yeah.
And even though we're all kind of feeling our way through the dark, it was, at least for me, the expectations that I felt were on me from outside, whether it was Ben or people in the church, were pretty close to the expectations that I felt like I had for myself, and the expectations I felt God had for me, during that time. And when those three things sync up, I think it's probably the healthiest place to be. To know what they are and to try not to do anything that's beyond that.
I think armchair counseling here, I think expectation, just listening to you talk about that, I think is probably, that might have been why a lot of church pastors and leaders really, things didn't go well for them because they might have had a more grandiose expectation, and it's like, if you think that you're the next big thing, or that you have a shot at being the next big thing in the church, the next Billy Graham or whatever, if you think that about yourself, and then there's this challenge of COVID-19 and all of 2020 and all of the stuff and garbage that year brought, that can be overwhelming. Of because you might have an expectation of yourself that you need to not just survive, you need to thrive during this time. You need to be like the church that's getting it right. And I think we talked about this week, in Return of the King. There's a character that's dealing with the one ring to rule them all is kind of tempting him.
Why you say one character?
It's Samwise.
Samwise
Gamgee. All right. I don't know.
You're like, spoiler alert.
Yeah, right?
Come on.
Been I don't know. It's been 80 years or something. I don't know. Probably. All right, spoiler alert. Samwise he's got the ring and he's being tempted by it to put it on in this very inopportune moment. It would be bad for him, but temptation isn't always logical. But the thing that saves him from that temptation is the fact that he knows that he's a gardener. He's a little hobbit gardener. And he goes, he says to himself basically, I could take over the world with this ring, but that'd be too much to garden. So it's I can only garden so much with these two hands. I can't do that.
Yeah.
And he has a proper expectation because he has a proper understanding of who he is, what he is. And I think, going back to a couple of weeks ago, God knows our frame. He remembers that we are dust. And I think maybe as people have burnt out and stuff like that, it might be because we're forgetting that we're dust, that God doesn't have any expectations for us to be, the rock, like Dwayne Johnson, he's not expecting that from us. He knows that we're dust and he cares for us as dust. And to maybe see ourselves a little bit more the way that God sees us and go, yeah, I'm just a gardener. I'm just from the dust. I'm returning to the dust. And, and guess what? Most people are not going to remember who I am after I die, and but God does, and He'll remember, and I'll be in His presence. And what is it? At the end of the day, what would it matter to be a big Lord of the Ring? It's just, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think, learning how to manage expectations, how to set them appropriately, not have, it goes back to the narcissist thing about not having an elevated perception of yourself or even a vision for yourself that's not meant for you.
Yeah.
But also you don't want to bottom out and say, well, I'm nothing.
Right.
Yeah. Because I think.
Because you are image of God.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Created in the image, in His likeness.
And, it's funny to me that I think both times I've been on here, I've talked about Lord of the Rings.
I think so. Because you just started reading Fellowship.
Yeah, I think so.
And that was not too long ago, because it took me a year to read Fellowship of the Rings. And that was only like 3 months ago, and you're already on Return of the King.
Well, I think I finished.
Are you finished Return of the King?
No.
Okay, you'd finished Fellowship.
I think I finished Fellowship by the time we had our
you
first
a
episode.
book and a half.
Yeah, something.
But gigantic book and a half.
Well, the thing is, Tolkien stops describing the landscape so much towards I think he takes so long to talk about landscaping. Like in the first book, I'm just
it's world creation.
Oh yeah.
And it's
so
really
hard,
good.
It is really good.
It's really tedious.
But he uses such British words for geography and landscaping that I have no idea what he's talking about. I don't even know what that word is. Like, I've seen that word in other contexts, but I don't think that has anything to do with rocks. So,
well, it's been good. I think, just to wrap things up, if you're, maybe you're struggling with your mental health, we would encourage you to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
We are here. Neither Brax or I are professionals.
Yeah.
Doug has done a lot of counseling. There's great counselors that we could refer you to. But just to know that you're not alone, that you don't have to fight this alone. One of the things that I was thinking about with mental health and just kind of not dealing with it is it takes a lot of work.
It does.
And we realize if you want it, you got to fight for it.
Yeah.
I have a loved one who's in the middle of a battle right now with a lot of issues that they're going through. It. They're just realizing now how much they want to fight for it, and it's really good to see.
Yeah.
But you're not alone, and you don't have to fight this battle alone. And so reach out to somebody. We're here. We love you. God loves you.
Yeah.
And we're so glad you hang out with us today. And we're going to say goodbye and hope to see you tonight again, 7 o'clock, Out of the Dust. I can't make any connections between We Are Dust and Out of the Dust. But it's great. It's going to be an awesome night. It looks like the sun's trying to poke its way through, but doesn't matter. Come here tonight.
Yeah.
Hang out. Listen to some good music. Fellowship. Eat some root beer floats. Drink some root beer floats. However you consume it. We'd love to see you here. Thanks for hanging out.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
See ya.